poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Right now, it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Anywhere a sound is found around the internet, we are found around making sound on the internet. Please share us with your friends. It is Tuesday, spotlighting all the hardworking activists up in Canada. They are, I tell you, amazing leaders. They are trendsetters. They knew about the wonders of cannabis long before Americans, I think. And they have been leading the charge in industrial hemp and later medical marijuana. And it's an honor to be on the program with my good friend Kelly Kristen. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Casper. How you doing today?
Oh, man, I tell you, when you live in Portland, it's like living on a Hollywood set. No, I do. I still keep waiting for somebody to yell cut, and all the prop people come in and take all the marijuana plants back to the prop room, and all the bags get wrapped up and put in the prop room, and you know, it's just, I don't believe it. I just think I'm living in a dream sometime. How about you?
Well, you know, it's been great up here. Weather's been good. It's been a decent summer. Life is good. Business is okay. You know, we're all is well. Let's just go there. How about that?
Well, you know, Kelly, we hang out with a motley group of people. Most of our friends have just been radicals and busted and thrown in jail, and oh my gosh, all over a plant. Can you believe that? A marijuana plant?
Isn't that strange?
And even seeds at times. Well, with that said, I'll let you bring on our joint guest today.
Our guest today is Dana Larson, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. He's been on the show, and I guess if you watch the news or pay attention or certainly live in British Columbia, no doubt you've heard of Dana Larson. How you doing, Dana?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. We always got lots to talk about. I know since the last time you were on the show, you got a little busy and started a little trek across the country, trying. I think you had visions of spreading 2 million or so cannabis seeds around the countryside.
Yeah, we gave away a lot of seeds this year, and we're going to give away even more seeds next year. I got my hands on millions of cannabis seeds. They're like a low THC, high CBD variety, and we gave away over 2 million of these seeds to people all across the country by mail order and in person. I did get arrested for this at one point, but we kept the tour going, and as far as I know, this is the biggest number of seeds distributed to the biggest number of people in the shortest amount of time ever in history of the world, as far as I know. So I'm pretty happy about how that all worked out.
Right. I don't doubt that for sure. I know that a lot of people received the seeds, and I'm sure they're out there growing away, hopefully like crazy. And I hope to see them.
Yeah, we had about 25,000 people request seeds across Canada. About half of them got them in the mail, and half of them we were able to give them out in person. And with these seeds, we were telling people to plant them in a public area. They could plant them on their own property and grow them, but I really wanted people planting seeds in parks and at their city hall and in public areas. And the idea is to normalize the growing of cannabis, that when you're walking down the street and you see a cannabis plant growing in someone's yard, it's not a big deal because you've seen 10 other ones that day earlier. And so that was part of the effort. And we certainly got a lot of plants growing all over the country, got a lot of news stories about all the plants that are popping up here and there. And they're still popping up, and we're still getting coverage, and I love it.
No, that's really awesome, of course. I like it. Unfortunately, you come to my town, and we didn't treat you so hospitably.
No, we were in Calgary, the second of my 16 cities that we visited, and there's a woman in Vancouver who hates marijuana named Pamela McCall, and she gets in the news fairly often with her anti-cannabis efforts. And she actually called several of the venues that I was going to be speaking at. She called the police forces in several towns and told them, Dana's going to be giving away cannabis seeds. You've got to stop him. This is against the law. And most places ignored her, but in Calgary, the police showed up and ended up arresting one of our volunteers, and then they arrested me, and I spent the night in jail for giving away cannabis seeds. I'm still on bail for that, actually, but even despite that, we still did another 14 cities across the country and kept giving away seeds after the night in jail. And as often these things go, it was really the night in jail and the arrest that helped the campaign more than anything else. It got massive media coverage when I was arrested, and
I'm sorry, but that's
people
that's
wondered
funny.
what the reason was, and it really helped a lot.
That's funny. That's funny. The arrest helped. I didn't mean to jump in like that, but that's just funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's often the case where, you know, it's their overreaction that really gets you the media attention and gets people aware of what you're doing, and the ridiculousness of it. In Canada, people are saying, well, we're about to legalize marijuana, but you're busting this guy for giving away seeds. What a weird situation that is.
It is a weird situation.
Anyway.
Everything's kind of weird in Canada these days because we're so close to legalization, supposedly, but they're still busting people. We've got more civil disobedience than ever with dispensaries and cannabis outlets opening all across the country. It's a very interesting time to be in the cannabis movement in Canada.
I agree. Like you say, it's supposedly coming online. We're told it's coming our way. As far as great details or what's going on or anything like that, no, we're not privy to what's really happening out there, and we can only hope that it comes sooner than later. And yeah, cannabis seeds, obviously, it shouldn't be a big deal anymore. It never should have been a big deal in the first place anyhow, but yeah, it just seems strange, a waste of resources. You know, cannabis seeds, come on. Are we really that desperate? We need to arrest people for such a thing? All I can tell you is you come to Calgary, and that's probably the place you shouldn't have come, because it is, you know, the place that would react to a complaint. You know, I knew a guy that flew into Canada with 7,000 packs of seeds and was pulled over into secondary into customs, and they confiscated the seeds, but he was never charged with anything. I mean, and that's, you know, years ago. I don't get it. It's again, somebody has to make a complaint, and if it did in fact come from BC or wherever it came from, somebody would have had to have complained for the police to act. And obviously, I have no doubt that whoever did complain here probably complained wherever you went across the country, but nobody else reacted to it as they did in Calgary. I think that's really sort of puts it into perspective what it's like in Calgary compared to Vancouver, where you are. You've had the pleasure of, you know, for more than a decade now, having cannabis-friendly places to smoke or vaporize. You know, et cetera, et cetera. It's although we're in the same country, it's like a different world.
Well, and the situation in Canada is one where we have a bunch of pot laws that are pretty much ignored by everybody. And they didn't always used to be the case. In the 90s, people would get busted for selling bongs and pipes in Canada quite regularly, and a lot of head shops were shut down. And then this civil disobedience campaign was launched, where we started openly breaking the laws and opening bong shops and dispensaries and selling seeds. And many folks got busted for this, but luckily we're in a country where the legal penalties are not very severe, and where the judges and courts are not willing to give people very long sentences for selling bongs or selling medical marijuana or selling seeds or that kind of thing. So we've had for the last 20 years this big civil disobedience push. As we move forward, we've managed to get the police and the courts to pretty much ignore most of the pot laws in Canada. So although even selling a bong is against the law in Canada, for the vast majority of bong shops now, there's no problems. Even though selling seeds is against the law in Canada. We got seed banks all across the country, including in Calgary, where you can go buy seeds over the counter in their city, where I was giving them away and was charged. And we've got dispensaries opening all across the country, many of which are now getting civic business licenses at the municipal level, even though they're still against federal law. And so the seed giveaway was, to me, kind of the last step in that. We've got Canadians, you know, buying or selling marijuana, seeds, bongs, pipes, books, all against the law. only thing we don't have is people openly growing cannabis in defiance of the law. And so I thought by giving away all these seeds, we could sort of launch the final part of this civil disobedience campaign, which is for Canadians to grow their own cannabis and do it openly and freely and not worry about any kind of penalties.
Well, no, that's a great idea, and I think that you were very successful at it. Like you say, over a couple million seeds, and no doubt most of them are probably starting to mature right now. And yeah, hopefully they're in public places. I mean, I've been to very generic trade shows that are very medicinal, and actually a lot of elderly people attended. And some of them from Europe, they go, oh, well, that stuff just used to grow on the side of the road, man. Like, what's the big deal? You know?
Yeah, in many parts of the world, including the U.S., cannabis grows wild all over the place. A lot of it's left over from farming and things that was done before, and some seeds escaped. I've read reports in the U.S. that a lot of the outdoor plants they claim to seize every year are actually just feral cannabis plants that don't really have much THC, but it just pushes up their numbers. And certainly in Canada, there's a lot of wild cannabis that grows. But yeah, I love the idea of people growing it openly, of it being in parks and public areas. People are like, oh, what if a kid were to come across this plant? I'm like, what if a kid would come across it? So what? There's only a very short period of time when those buds are ready to smoke, and even then you got to bring them home and cure them and dry them out. You can't just pluck it off the plant. And there's so many plants out there that are hallucinogenic, that are poisonous, that grow in our yards and our gardens, that if you were to break some off and eat it, you would die or have some very serious problems. Plants are not dangerous, and if we're worried about kids being exposed to cannabis plants, that's a conversation to be had, not a reason to send in the police and try to ban every plant that's growing out there. So I'm very happy with this campaign. Next year we're going to give away 5 million seeds. We're going to be starting in January. Anybody who's interested can go to overgrowcanada.com and sign up, and we'll be giving away a lot more seeds next year, and we'll keep doing it every year as long as we can.
Nice. And you say they're low THC, so this isn't all your heavy-duty stoners?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't get access to millions and millions of high THC seeds, but the ones we've got, they produce a decent CBD level. But really, these plants are more just for the fun of growing and for getting them out there in public. If you get some good medicine at the end of it, that's fine. I wish I could give away millions of high THC seeds, but I just don't have access to that many of them. We did give away about 50,000 seeds that have for high THC plants that were donated this year as well. But that doesn't compare to the millions we gave away of the CBD ones. So that's what I've got most of. And so we're going to be doing all of that again next year.
Cool. And that's starting in January?
Yeah, starting in January. This year we started a bit late. I didn't really get the seeds donated until the spring, and so some of them weren't getting to people until May or June, which was fine, but you're not going to get your optimal plant if you're not planting until May. So this year we're going to start earlier. We've got a lot of seeds, and it's only for Canadians, though. I can't send seeds across the border or to Americans, but within Canada, we're definitely overgrowing the country.
Wow. I long for the day that I'll be driving down the road, and instead of seeing so many canola fields and wheat fields, that I see a few hemp fields and cannabis fields along the way also.
Well, that's an interesting thing because we've got legalized hemp in Canada, and so our farmers are growing hemp, but it's very tightly restricted and very controlled. And what I think is very important, perhaps even the most important thing going on in cannabis in Canada, is that our hemp farmers are asking the government, can we please keep the resin from our plants? Can we please keep the CBD that we're producing and sell that as a medicine to people? And once they get a yes on that question, we're going to see huge amounts of CBD medicine available in Canada at extremely low prices. Because right now, these farmers are growing for seed, and they have to destroy all their CBD resin and put it back in the ground. They can't keep any of it. And these hemp farmers are producing more resin than all of Canada's marijuana farmers combined. Now, it's CBD resin, but it's still a lot of tons and tons of this stuff. And we know what a great medicine CBD is. And if these farmers could be allowed to keep that stuff and sell it on the market, for them it's a waste product. So they could sell it quite cheaply and still make a really good profit off of it. And that would allow Canadians and anybody in the world ultimately to have access to Canadian-grown CBD at dirt cheap prices compared to what it is now. And that, to me, is very exciting. And of course, hopefully at some point our farmers will be able to grow high THC marijuana. And that, to me, is really what the end of Prohibition is all about, getting our farmers to be able to grow this crop by the thousands of acres.
Wow. Like you say, I long for the day that I get to drive down the highway and see nothing but a lot of that stuff.
I'm looking forward to it.
We don't have a great growing season here in Calgary or in Alberta for that matter. It's fairly short, so there's a lot of auto flowers and that kind of stuff. And of course, people using greenhouses and trying to control the light so that they can get them to flower a little earlier, because we just don't quite have the season. It gets a little cold before they finish. But like I say, with auto flowers and with a canopy of some variety that you can get the light, shorten the light a little quicker than is naturally out there. Yeah, we can finish in Alberta. So, as long as I've known, they've grown cannabis in British Columbia and Ontario outdoors, and I've smoked some of that stuff, and some of it's not so great, but some of them outdoor farmers really know what they're doing, and it can be equally as good and or better than stuff produced indoors in a relatively controlled climate.
Well, the thing about farmers growing marijuana outdoors is that they're not going to get perfectly manicured buds like we do now. So if you're looking for perfect buds, it's still going to be grown indoors or in a greenhouse. But what a farmer can do is make extracts. They can extract their resin in a very large scale and make extremely pure and high potency extracts at a very low price. And so, my math, it shows they could be producing stuff like resin and shatter or whatever, things we're paying a lot for like $1 a gram. The price would be so drastically less that I think it under a natural form of legalization, smoking joints and buds would become less popular and extracts would become more popular because it's so much cheaper to produce extracts. They're so much more pure and so much more discreet and easy to use. I mean, I love smoking joints, but a lot of people don't want to smell like pot while they're at work or while they're in their car or while they're around their kids or whatever. And extracts allow you to take cannabis in a form that's much more discreet, much more easy, and much more medicinal for those who need it. And so I really think the long-term future of cannabis is from extracts and resins grown by farmers outdoors with a smaller niche market for those who still want perfect buds, and those would be grown indoors or in a greenhouse or whatever, that kind of thing. But I think extracts grown by farmers is really the future.
Nice, interesting. Well, I'm a big fan of the CBD, and we've seen what wonders it can do for youngsters, children that are have problems with seizures. It seems to be work phenomenally well for that. So I'm all for it. And how can you not be when you see what it what it's capable of doing for somebody?
Well, we're just really getting started on all the cannabinoids. There's CBG and CBN and all these other combinations of cannabinoids, and we're just starting to learn the medicinal benefits of all these things. For a long time, it was only THC was the only one, and now we're learning CBD is so wonderfully useful, and we're starting to learn about CBG and its incredible properties. And I think over the next few decades, we're going to keep learning about more and more aspects of cannabis and how wonderful it is.
Absolutely. Like you say, there's no we're all familiar with THC, and now most of us are familiar with CBD, and now you say CBG. There's more than a dozen other parts to this plant that haven't been explored at all, just because of the prohibition and that type of thing. So once it's totally open and they start to really dissect this plant, I think they're going to find a lot more than just CBD and THC.
I think you're very right. Terpenes and flavonoids are also starting to be discovered and learning about the medical benefits, how they interact with cannabinoids, and how they modulate the cannabis high and the medicinal effects. And I think we're just barely scratching the surface about how all these complicated systems in the plant interact with humans, and what we're finding is just more and more medical benefits, more and more positive aspects, and understanding how to use this plant better to really maximize its amazing medicinal properties.
Hallelujah. Did you ever think that you'd be thinking that far ahead now, or, when you first started as an activist in the cannabis community and where we are today and where you see it going? I mean, obviously this is what you wanted or hoped for. Now that you see it coming to fruition, you can see even beyond the legalization of cannabis and THC and CBD, and it just continues on and on and on yet. No doubt for decades yet.
Oh, it's going to be a long thing. And even after it's legalized, we're still going to have lots of work to do, because the legalization we get, at least the first version of it, is not going to be sufficient, and it's going to be tightly controlled and overly restrictive and have too many penalties and treat cannabis too seriously. And we're going to have to keep moving forward. I've had reporters ask me, what are you going to do when marijuana is legal? You're going to be out of work, right? You're an activist. What are you going to do? And it's like, no. I mean, are the racial equality activists, or the women's rights activists, or the gay rights activists, are they done because there's no official government, attacks on these groups? So there's lots to be done. We're still going to have people losing their jobs because they smoke pot. We're still going to have people losing their kids because they smoke pot. We're still going to have stigma and challenges. And even when it's legalized in Canada, we still got other countries around the world that we want to change these laws as well. And so it's an ongoing thing. And, legalization version 1.0, which is going to be coming hopefully in Canada next year. And I'm very excited about that. But there's no way we're going to just dust our hands off and be, okay, we're done. We can buy $10 grams from a government controlled monopoly at a liquor store or something. That's a good first step, I guess, but it's hardly the final step in what I'm looking for. So once Canadian farmers can grow high THC marijuana, then I feel that we've got where we need to be in terms of legalization. But it's a long way from that. So there's still a lot of work to do in this area. But once the official government prohibition is removed, everything else, it's a lot easier to deal with. And really, frankly, for me, it's not just about cannabis. I want to see the whole war on drugs end. I feel that after cannabis is legalized, we got to work on psilocybin mushrooms and MDMA and the psychedelics. They need to be legalized next, and ultimately the whole war on drugs needs to be gotten rid of. And I feel that for psychedelics and these kind of entheogenic plants and substances, we're going to see the same kind of thing with cannabis, where it's the medicalization is going to be the first step. People who don't like MDMA or psilocybin mushrooms don't want some kid doing it for fun, but it's hard to say no to a cancer patient or a veteran who's dealing with PTSD or end-of-life issues who needs psilocybin mushrooms or MDMA to help deal with that kind of stuff. And so I think we're going to see the medicalization of psychedelics and those kind of the same transition, understanding these things aren't just recreational, fun, hedonistic substances. They're actually powerful medicines that, if used properly, can have very positive effects. And cannabis is the best one, the best medicine, the best plant in the world. But I want to see all these plants legalized, and that includes psilocybin mushrooms to me, that includes coca leaf and opium poppies, and every plant on earth should not be prohibited. And, when there's dangers or risks involved, those are best dealt with through some kind of legalized regulation. And so for me, cannabis is the first step and a very important step in ending the whole war on drugs. And that's really what I'm interested in.
Absolutely. I've had the pleasure of seeing some great effects from the mushroom side of things. Anybody listening, if you've ever consumed psychedelic mushrooms, you know that before you start to feel the effect, you seem to yawn an awful lot. And one of the dispensaries that we actually had in Calgary years ago no longer exists, unfortunately. They had started some therapy with a few patients that were having problems sleeping. And I thought, my God, how do you think mushrooms are ever going to help someone sleep? But when it was explained that they were using extremely small doses, and what they got was that yawning effect and not the high and the hallucinogenic effect from it, and it actually helped them sleep. It was amazing. I was really blown away at how well it was working for some of these people that had trouble sleeping.
It's incredible, and certainly microdosing is something that's becoming more and more popular, where you're taking sub-threshold doses of LSD or mushrooms, where you're not getting high or getting any real recognizable mental effect, but you're getting a very small little tweak that can be quite positive for your mood and for your creativity and for your mental health. A lot of research showing these things. A lot of research showing a single psychedelic mushroom trip can have positive psychic and psychological effects on people for the rest of their lives. And you want to do these things in a safe way and in a responsible way and in a therapeutic way and everything. I'm not, saying there isn't risks involved to these things, but yeah, that to me, cannabis is the number one plant, the number one substance, and the one that should be legalized first. But I'm looking forward to when all plants are legal and when the whole concept of a war on drugs, which is really a war on plants, is just abandoned in our society. We recognize there's much better ways to deal with all these things. But first is cannabis. That's got to be dealt with first. It's the linchpin of the whole war on drugs, and ultimately it's the world's greatest plant. It needs to be legalized immediately.
Hear, hear. And, well, as, not only here in Canada we've seen great strides, but our friends to the south in the U.S., also very surprising to me to see states actually legal for recreational cannabis and more states moving towards that. Not to mention now over half the states have medicinal program. Mexico is also moving in that direction. South America is making leaps and bounds. Uruguay is legal. It's a wonderful time for the cannabis plant.
It is, but the DEA is hanging on, grasping at the last straw, and we still are going to have to vote a few more states, make a few more changes at the ballot box, and then finally those states that don't have initiatives, well, then their lawmakers will finally come around. If not, the federal government will have to. With that said, we're going to take a commercial break, pay our bills, and come back where we left off here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Fire it up, man.
Turn it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
Baby.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
In the morning when I rise, I feel good 'cause I realize that there's no need to feel stressed. In this life I've done my best. As times get rougher, I get a little tougher. And when it seems I've had enough, I just blaze it up.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I need to cut it up. I need to roll it up, yeah.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
Baby. I need to blaze it up. I need to smoke it up, yeah.
Ooh, that's some fire weed. Give me some, so I can smoke till my nails get burnt or my lips get numb. Everywhere I go, they got doja. Smoking so much green, I feel like a soldier. I wanna roll up some fire so I can get blow past cloud 9 and touch the sky on my tiptoes, tearing up my timbos, trying to smoke out the mold after out the mold.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
Come on.
I need to cut it up. I need to roll it up. Yeah.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I mean, I smoke it away from December.
Blaze it up. I need to smoke it up. Yeah.
Ganja, 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 ganja. I never smoke it, say me and me say Brenda. Ganja, 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 ganja. Me partner, me going to Jamaica. So burn it up, you gotta burn up the ganja. Burn it up, people talk we a wonder. Burn it up, we a drink up the liquor. Me say burn it up, Chicago people we a go under.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
Baby, I need to cut it up. I need to roll it up. Yeah.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I need to blaze it up. I need to smoke it up. Yeah.
Give me the weed, good ganja weed. Give me the sense of me that make me blow down the sea. Give me the weed, good ganja weed. Give me the sense of me that make me blow down the sea. Love is what you want to today. Hey, but when you want to get high, like I don't know, like the birds in the sky, like I don't know why. Come down, rude boy.
You ain't got to irritate with the way, 'cause you ain't finna hit this black jack. You ain't finna catch this contact. You ain't finna get hat off for that. Better come with a blessing to enter this session, 'cause we getting low. Off the mark the molds, rolling hydro, and I know you be the lame, bitch, 'cause you can't hang with this flame. Shh, always talking about how you be smoking weed, but now you sleep wrapped up in your mama. She just smoking here, last the whole night. It's alright, 'cause I can smoke up and until it's daylight.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I need to cut it up. I need to roll it up. Yeah.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I need to blaze it up. I need to smoke it up. Yeah.
Yo, ganja was found and things are lemon great. Smoke sense in me now and me feel like red. Yes, some ragamuffin me a top celebrity. The ragamuffin fire say me love me sensei. Roll it up, smoke it up each and every day. Take out down on my knees and pray for another day. Roll it up, smoke it up, me feel like red. Yes, a ragamuffin we a top celebrity. Yeah.
I cut the chronic like I cut up the coochie in big chunks, thick skunk bud rolled up nice in a big blunt. Hit it once, pass it right to your dead, so she can hit it as soon as she finished with it. I started rubbing the kidneys, turn me out. White out music, perfect the move with a switch. Not to mention Garcia, Vegas, and liquor. I can make a quiet girl turn to a stripper. Take off your clothes, expose your neck, your back, your pussy, and your crack. It's like that. I bounce with an ounce of that Mary Jane, so potent and flame. For me to sell it would be insane. I'm smoking this here, personal business, like having sex with you bitches. It's on the low, and I ain't selling my gristle for show.
Cut it up, roll it up, blaze it up, smoke it up.
I need to blaze it up. I need to smoke it up. Yeah.
Yeah, blaze it up. That's what we do here at Time for Hemp, and we encourage you to do the same when you tune in or anytime you are sharing time with your buds. Get it? Time with your buds. Arc, arc. Please get out, get busy, be active. Let the whole world know how important it is to end prohibition. Tuesday it is. We got a spotlight on the hardworking activists in Canada. Joint host Kelly, Kristen, and Kelly, you and your team are amazing. You're nice enough to give away a free, expensive vaporizer to a medical marijuana patient who cannot afford to consume their cannabis in a healthy way. And Kelly, why don't you share that information with our audience today?
You bet. It's one of my favorite times of the show is to let the audience know that there is a free vaporizer out there, and it's really available to medical patients, and it's so easy and simple. There's only 2 requirements. One, you must use cannabis as a medicine, regardless of your ailment. We're not choosy about that at all. As long as you're using cannabis medicinally, that's what we're looking for. And of course, if you're using it medicinally, you're probably, like a lot of the patients I know, on assisted income, a disability pension, an old age pension, whatever the case may be. And generally on those types of incomes, it's tough enough to pay rent and buy food, let alone get some of your cannabis as medicine, and then certainly dream about owning a quality vaporizer. So we've, for several years now, have been giving them away for free. And again, the requirements are just to be a patient who uses cannabis medicinally, and you simply can't afford a quality vaporizer on your own. All you have to do is send me an email to Kelly, Kelly, at kdkwholesale.ca. Tell us a little bit about yourself and some contact info, and we'll put you in the hat, so to speak, and hopefully we draw your name and send you a free vaporizer. Even we'll ship it right to your door, and it's anywhere in the world. This is not strictly for Canada or Canadian patients. Certainly we have shipped them all over Australia, Israel, Europe, United States, of course, Canada. I don't think we've shipped any to Mexico, but we have in South America. So wherever you are in the world and you're listening, if you use cannabis medicinally and cannot afford a quality vaporizer, we want to hear from you. And if you're listening, you probably may know somebody who's in that situation. Please make them aware of the program, because I know we certainly love giving them away.
Kelly, that is so kind of you, and on behalf of the cannabis movement, thank you so very much. Now, one thing I do not understand is that how, as healthy as they are, how it is that here recently in BC they have banned the use of vapors, e-cigarettes in public. I guess you can't in the workplace or in parks or on beaches or anywhere that you would normally use a vape pen. No longer. And it's my understanding that that's still even more healthy than a pipe. What's up with that?
We're not happy about this at all, and it affects cannabis users as well as people vaping any substance, and it really makes no sense. And they're also doubling the distance you've got to be away from a doorway for cigarettes or vaporizing from 10 feet to 20 feet. So if you're within 20 feet of any doorway or in any park or anywhere, it's on the road to banning everything. They do it one step at a time, and ultimately they're going to ban cigarette smoking, I think. And this is, aside from the tobacco users, it's a big problem for cannabis users who get lumped into this stuff. And you got medical users who sometimes can't smoke cannabis in their own homes. They live in an apartment or a house where they're not allowed. And they can't do it on the street. They can't do it in a park. And the cities don't want to give us safe spaces to vaporize. There's a couple in the city, but the Vancouver's pretty much shut down everywhere that was allowing you to use cannabis on the premises. And this is a problem for medical users and recreational users and anybody that uses cannabis, and that they're eliminating all of our spots to go use it. And I think tobacco users should have a place to use tobacco too. And the idea that they're banning all this and banning vaporization, which is the safest way of inhaling any kind of thing, is ridiculous and something we're quite upset about. It's not just in BC, it's happening all across Canada. These laws are coming in province by province. I think Ontario has also banned handheld vaporizers or any vaporizing, and we're seeing this all across the country now.
Yes, it's happening here too, of course. Yeah, it's federal. It's coming from a federal level, it's
vaporizing is so much safer than smoking, and that's what really the problem is here. Is they're treating these two things the same. And for cigarettes especially, vaporizing and using those things is so much more safe than smoking a cigarette. I don't really understand why they're trying to push people away from this. It's for many people, it's a much healthier option. And, we're in a city that has a supervised injection site, which I totally support. But the idea that those who need, opiates have a safe place to inject opiates, but those who need cannabis or tobacco are forbidden from using it anywhere, it seems kind of weird. Like, we need some safe inhalation sites for the cannabis users as well.
Right. I think the big push for the e-cigarette thing is just that it's the cigarettes. They currently don't have any taxation in place. So all the people who switched from smoking cigarettes to juicing their tobacco are no longer paying any sort of form of tobacco tax, either provincially or federally. So I think that their revenues for that particular thing have dropped dramatically, as a lot of smokers have changed and started using e-juice or e-cigarettes, and they're getting their nicotine through these products and not paying any of the ridiculously high taxes, of course, that they have on such products. So I think it's sort of their first reactionary type of thing, and then, oh my God, well, it's like you say, we didn't realize we were going to affect medical cannabis patients, and we didn't realize this was going to happen. And then they have to sit back and say, okay, well, we should allow it like we do anything else. They just need to figure out a way to tax the nicotine, and I think they'll be happy.
Yeah, it's weird. They're banning all forms of vaporization. They need to make an exclusion for cannabis at least, and treating it all the same like this is a problem. And a lot of cities in Canada, their bylaws are specific to tobacco only, and so those cities don't ban using cannabis. But Vancouver has got bylaws against any weed or plant. You can't vaporize or smoke anything, and this includes cannabis. Of course, they enforce it very oddly, but anyways, I don't like these laws coming down. I think it's a problem, especially for medical cannabis users, and it's unfortunate they're just passing all this stuff and dumping it on the cities to enforce it.
Insane for sure. But and there you go. There's that activism in you. You've got something else on your plate.
Well, so there's always battles to be fought and always ways to be pushing this forward, and it's interesting that we're on the verge of legalization in some ways, and in other ways things are actually getting stricter and tighter in Canada, but it's always like that, and that's kind of the nature of how this stuff works. And I think overall things are going in the right direction, even though this vaporizer ban is kind of a problem.
Definitely. Now, I know very shortly there in your very near to you in Vancouver, there is a nice little expo upcoming called the Lift Expo. There'll be the first time in Vancouver. They did have one show in the springtime in Toronto, and that's this upcoming weekend, the 17th and 18th of September. Maybe you can fill us in. You know what we can expect?
Well, there's all kinds of cannabis events happening in Vancouver and BC, Canada these days, I guess. There's the Karma Cup in Toronto. There's a Roots or a Grassroots Cannabis Cup and dispensary tour happening in Victoria. There's the ICBC International Cannabis Business Conference in Vancouver, and a whole bunch of other things going on. The LIFT conference is interesting because LIFT tries to bridge the gap between the licensed producers, the 36 companies in Canada that have got federal authority to grow and sell cannabis to patients, and the activist wing of the movement, the dispensaries and the civil disobedience end of things. And often we don't like each other, right? The dispensaries don't, the licensed producers spend a lot of time complaining about dispensaries and how we're cheating and getting a head start on them, and we're not following the rules. And a lot of us don't like the licensed producers because they're lobbying to shut us down, and because they produce for a large part a low quality, expensive product, and we don't like the regulations. But LIFT tries to bring all these groups together, and so it's good, I think, to bring us all together. But it also creates an interesting tension at these events between these two camps. I know there's some folks who are going to be protesting the LIFT conference outside, complaining about the licensed producers and the whole thing. But I'll be there. I got a pass. I don't think I'm speaking at this one, but I'll be participating and hanging out and checking it all out. And it's one of many cannabis events happening, and it's great to see all these different things going on, and cups and contests and events and expos. And it's remarkable how many of them there are these days.
Without a doubt, it's taking up more and more time. Like you say, the LIFT Expo bringing sort of the two parties together. I sort of sit back and think, does it not make sense? I mean, I am sort of on board basically with both sides because they both have a story to tell. And the licensed producers, these are the guys, a lot of them never been in this industry, and all they see is dollar signs. They had the money because it cost a lot of money to become a licensed producer, to conform to all the regulations and what you needed to do in order to be a licensed producer. So they definitely have a vested interest in selling to the medical patient. But what one must remember is that these dispensaries were around a long time ago when there was no licensed producers and there was no government to help the medical patient. And these people put their lives on the line, their reputations, their jobs, all this stuff to risk everything they had in order to provide cannabis as a medicine to medical patients. So do they have a vested interest? You bet they do. I'm just hoping that somewhere down the line, maybe it's these dispensaries become a venue for the medical patient to and or the general public, as far as I'm concerned. They've already been doing it. They need to set up rules and regulations just like they did for the licensed producers. It only makes sense to me that the licensed producers can now provide the dispensaries with their product, and everybody's doing sort of the same thing they were before, and everybody's hopefully happy. I don't know. That to me, that's
that model. That model will work only if there's a lot more licensed producers. I'm not interested. There's only 36 companies, and I'm not really interested in my dispensary in selling cannabis from any of those 36 companies. Nor do they have anything close to what they need to supply all the dispensaries in Canada. And they're limited into what they can make. They can't produce edibles or extracts or hash or dabs or any of that stuff. But if my current producers could become licensed, if most of my current suppliers could tweak their enterprise a little bit, get a permit for a reasonable cost, and keep doing what they're doing, then I'd be happy to carry licensed producer weed because those are my current suppliers. But I don't think any of us in the dispensary movement are interested in switching and carrying only products from these 36 current producers. And that is one of the big problems in Canada, is you've got a system that allows people to get a license to grow and sell cannabis for medical use. But there's hundreds of companies that have applied who have not gotten permission, and most of them are just in limbo where they're waiting to hear back, and they're stuck in this limbo zone. And so the idea that there's only going to be 30 suppliers for marijuana in Canada makes no sense at all. There needs to be 300 or 3,000 or 30,000 people and companies licensed to grow marijuana. And so that, I think, is the big problem. I'm not really such a big hater on the licensed producers, although when they tell the media they want to see me and my friends all arrested for selling marijuana, that kind of pisses me off. But ultimately, it's not really them. It's the federal government, and that's where we should be focusing. They've created the rules that allow the situation to exist, and certainly many of the LPs, I think, are lobbying the federal government to keep these tight rules in place, because if they loosen things up and make it easier for people to grow marijuana, which they should, that will dilute the value of these 30 licenses, right? So once you're in the system, once you're licensed, your motivation financially is to shut that door behind you and make sure nobody else gets a permit, right? So you don't see any of the LPs lobbying for the government to license a bunch more people, but that's really what we need. We need thousands and thousands of companies and individuals licensed to grow marijuana in Canada.
I agree.
And yeah.
Certainly isn't that where you start? Again, we already have licensed producers. We already have dispensaries. So we start there, and then all of a sudden the dispensaries, they can't supply the dispensary. So it's like, okay, well, now we need more licensed producers. Well, maybe we need to make it easier or allow some of these applicants that have been there, so on and so forth. I think it's a progression, and I think naturally it's a sort of a start to a good fit, keeping both parties happy for the time being, and then saying, okay, now that we have this, there's a problem with supply. We need more licensed producers. We need to open up the floodgates, so to speak, or give out more licenses, et cetera, et cetera. Because not only will there be a need for more licensed producers, there's going to be a need for more dispensaries. We don't even have any in Calgary. So, there's going to be an increase on all of those things, licensed producers, dispensaries, a grower, it's just going to be a plethora.
Yeah.
It's the recreational market. And then the competition is what creates and forces the licensed producers to make a better quality product.
Well, let's hope it works out like that, and that's certainly one of the ways it could go. And there's more dispensaries opening up all across the country. Dispensaries are illegal, of course, but they're still getting business licenses. And in Vancouver, Victoria, and Nanaimo, many other cities in Canada are giving out licenses now for dispensaries. And so it's a very interesting time with everything moving forward. And probably it's all going to come together. But what's also interesting is that patients in Canada have just won or re-won, I guess, the right to grow their own cannabis. And that's huge. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of Canadians now have the legal right not only to buy it from a licensed producer, but to grow their own cannabis. And I think that's very important and one of the most historic court decisions in the whole cannabis battle in Canada. We had 28,000 people that were injunctioned and allowed to keep growing their own, and we're going to see tens of thousands more putting in their applications to Health Canada. And I think that home growing is a key to legalization for everybody. I'd like to see a system where we can grow our own cannabis at home, but most folks don't bother because it's easier just to go buy it in a store. But the right to grow your own cannabis is crucial. And so having medical patients getting this confirmed in Canada is very big for us. It's very recent, and I think it's historic and will really help to increase the supply of high-quality medicinal cannabis all across the country.
Without question. When you have medical patients growing their own plants to help them with their particular ailment, I think that they try to do their best that they possibly can. They invest time and effort and love and care into the plant. Not to mention I think there's a fair amount of therapeutic effect from the fact you are growing your own medicine. And
just going to say that even growing it yourself is therapeutic in that act. And certainly we don't want people being forced to grow their own cannabis or like having that be the only way they can get it. But as long as cannabis in Canada is still, $5 to $10 a gram to buy it, it makes great economic sense to grow it yourself. And I want to see legal cannabis be much, much cheaper. Without prohibition, the natural price for a perfectly manicured bud should be around $2 a gram. And extracts should actually be cheaper because there's less physical labor involved in making extracts. And it's going to be a while, I know, before the prices get down to those kind of levels. But once the price starts to drop, and I think it will, legalization will mean a big price drop. It'll make home growing more of something you do as a hobby or because you're really particular about it, but not something that you're forced economically to do as the only way to get your medicine. It should be an option for people, but we don't make them produce their own penicillin at home because we charge so much for penicillin, and it should be the same with cannabis. Home growing should be an option for people, but it should not be the only way for them to afford the medicine they need.
As you stated earlier, there are a tremendous amount of people who simply could never grow for themselves, whether they're not physically capable, whether they live in an apartment building or in a basement suite or in a rental. There are just so many people that just cannot grow anyhow. They're going to have to buy their cannabis either through a dispensary or a liquor store or whatever the case may be. And let's face it, even if you have a home and a yard, lots of people have yards. Not that large percentage of people have gardens where they grow their own tomatoes because it's just easier to go and buy it at the store. So I think that the amount of people that will grow for themselves, like you say, will be the people that have an interest in wanting to do it for themselves as a hobby, or they want something specific, or they want to know what their medicine is having, pesticides or that kind of stuff. At least yourself, you know exactly what happened to that plant. And again, like you say, bottom line is the actual therapeutic benefit just from growing it yourself.
Well, one thing I cannot buy at all is more time. No one can do that. And we are down to the end of the hour. We got about 2 minutes left to give a shout out to our favorite URLs. And we'll start with our joint guest today, Dana.
Hey, well, you can check out, I've actually got a bunch of books out, and you can check them out at greenbudsandhash.com, greenbudsandhash.com. And you can see what I'm up to at danalarson.com. And everything's on there. So if you want to find out more, go check it out.
Groovy. And Kelly?
I'm going to slide in too today, Casper, of course, to medical patients out there who could use a benefit from a free vaporizer. It's Kelly, Kelly, at kdkwholesale.ca. And don't forget about the Lift Expo this weekend in Vancouver. Just simply type in Lift Expo Vancouver and it'll come up for you, and we hope to see you there.
And I want to remind people that we are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all cannabis all the time. And we are like a good joint, always best when you share us with your friends. Lots of free archives to download from the website, free cartoons, free editorial cartoons, I should say. And we're also growing marijuana live on the site, so you can check in and see how our plants are doing anytime you'd like. Got a newsletter you can have each month for free, and we do appreciate it when everybody does sign up and pass that around. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes.
Free? Did you say free? Free hemp? Free hemp? Free hemp video and audio? Free downloads of all the top artists, all the pot artists on planet Earth. Interviews with all the people making the movement, making the hemp movement. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp. That's right, world. It's time for hemp.